The gentle afternoon sunlight poured down on the quiet residential streets of La Jolla. Carol Brown was watering the flowers in her garden when she happened to glance up at the sky. Colorful petunias and marigolds swayed in the breeze, their fragrance enveloping her. "I wonder if it's time for the children to head home," she mused. At 62, Carol still couldn't shake the habit of keeping track of school dismissal times, even though she had retired from teaching 2 years ago. The 20 years she spent in front of the classroom remained her life's pride. Since losing her husband to a heart attack 5 years ago, she had been living alone in this house. But there was no time to feel lonely. Visiting her granddaughter Lily 2 or 3 times a week had become the center of her life. "Grandma!" A high-pitched voice rang out from the entrance. Lily had come for her weekend visit. Now 8 years old and in 2nd grade, she was an energetic girl who took ballet and piano lessons. "Well, hello Lily. You're early today." As Carol headed to the entrance, Lily came bounding in. Behind her stood her son Michael. Now an elite employee at an investment bank earning $200,000 a year, Michael cut an impressive figure in his navy suit, still showing traces of the boy she had raised, but now carrying himself with the authority of an adult. "Mom, could you watch Lily today? Jennifer has a night shift at the hospital, and I have an important meeting." There was fatigue in Michael's voice. His work had been getting increasingly busy lately. Coming home after 9 p.m. had become the norm. "Of course. Lily, let's bake cookies together," Carol answered while gently stroking her granddaughter's head. Lily's eyes lit up. However, at that moment, Carol noticed something shadowy in her granddaughter's expression. Some of her usual brightness seemed to be missing. Michael had met Jennifer, a nurse, at the hospital 7 years ago. She had been his attending nurse when he was hospitalized after a traffic accident. Her gentle, uncaring nature had captured Michael's heart, and they had built a happy home together. However, recently, shadows had begun to appear in that happiness. Michael was coming home even later, and weekend work had increased. Family time was definitely decreasing. Over the past 6 months, conversations between the couple had dwindled, and the atmosphere at home had gradually grown cold. "I'll pick her up tonight," Michael said, hurriedly leaving the entrance. Lily watched her father's back as he left and let out a small sigh. Carol took her granddaughter's hand and headed to the kitchen. In her heart, she worried about the changes in her son. Where had the gentle father gone? But for now, she wanted to cherish this precious time with her granddaughter. With these thoughts, Carol smiled and spoke to Lily. "So, what kind of cookies would you like to make?" In a luxury townhouse in the Carmel Valley district, Michael was already adjusting his tie while Dawn was still painting the sky in dim colors. Dressed in an Italian designer suit and holding the latest smartphone, he headed for the entrance. His newly purchased Rolex watch gleamed quietly in the dim light. "Daddy, are you going to be late again today?" Lily's small voice came from behind him. When he turned around, his daughter stood halfway up the stairs in her pink unicorn pajamas, looking anxious. In the past, Michael would have rushed up the stairs to hug her and kiss her forehead. "I'm sorry, Lily. I have an important meeting today." It was an excuse he'd been repeating almost daily for the past few months. Michael barely glanced at his daughter before hurrying out. A new BMW waited for him in the garage. As he started the engine, he reviewed documents for a new business deal. The words Las Vegas Project danced across the page. At the breakfast table left behind sat only Jennifer and Lily. Jennifer worked as a pediatric nurse at the city's general hospital. There were no traces of the once lively breakfast on the table. Just toast and cereal. The hot coffee placed at Michael's seat had already started to cool. "Lily, can you stay home by yourself today? Are you feeling all right?" "Yes." Lily's response lacked her usual energy. Recently, she had been waking up more frequently during the night, hearing her parents' arguments through the walls. Last night too, her father had come home late. To her mother's, "Who were you with?" her father had only tersely replied, "Work." The silence that followed had hurt Lily the most. Jennifer watched her daughter with concern. Her husband's changes were obvious to her as well. It had all started 6 months ago when Linda Parker joined the investment division as a new employee. Linda was 29, a Stanford graduate school alumna. Ambitious and brilliant, she reminded many of Michael himself in his earlier days. At first, it was just a normal boss-subordinate relationship. But gradually, their relationship began to change. Late-night overtime, weekend emergency meetings, and increasing business trips to Las Vegas. Every exchange of glances in the conference room, every casual conversation in the elevator stirred Jennifer's intuition. While shopping at Westfield UTC Mall, she had accidentally spotted them together. Their intimate laughter wasn't that of just a boss and subordinate. Since that day, Jennifer's doubts had only grown. She stared at a number in her phone, San Diego's most reputable private investigation firm. For weeks, she had been debating whether to call that number. Since her husband's smartphone password had been changed and she had started noticing unfamiliar perfume scents, her suspicions were turning into certainty. "Mom," Lily called out in a small voice. "Does Daddy hate us now?" Those words squeezed Jennifer's heart. On the table, half-eaten pancakes had grown cold and stiff. "Of course not. Daddy is just busy with work." Lying was painful. But she didn't yet have the courage to tell the truth to her 8-year-old daughter. Wednesday ballet, Saturday piano lessons, Lily had recently been reluctant to attend either. "Because Daddy won't come watch me." Those words deeply wounded Jennifer's heart. Meanwhile, in the investment bank's downtown office, Michael was immersed in meetings for the new project. Recently, he had come to enjoy the time spent reviewing documents alongside Linda in the high-rise conference room. Her perfume, her sophisticated demeanor, her sharp judgment, everything about her seemed to free him from the pressures of daily life. "Mr. Brown, about next week's Las Vegas trip." There was a hint of anticipation in Linda's voice. The luxury hotel suite was already booked. For a moment, his family's faces flashed through Michael's mind, but he quickly pushed the thought away. "Yes, everything's arranged. We should have plenty of time for discussions there." Linda gave a small smile at his response. Their relationship had already crossed professional boundaries. Their lunch meetings had become more frequent, and conversations at bars after work had grown longer. In the evening, at Scripps Memorial Hospital's pediatric ward, Jennifer checked patient charts while thinking about her own family situation. She struggled daily to restore children's smiles. Yet the reality that she couldn't protect her own daughter's smile tormented her. Meanwhile, Lily had returned from school and was doing homework alone in the empty house. Occasionally calling her grandmother Carol had become her solace. The family photo in the entrance hall showed the three of them smiling with their shoulders touching, an image that was becoming a distant memory. Just a little longer. Jennifer finally made up her mind. Her finger trembled slightly as she dialed the private investigator's number. Outside, San Diego's peaceful evening light quietly enveloped the city. At 7 a.m., Michael left home as usual. Without looking back at the entrance, he got into his new BMW, a sight that had become part of the daily routine. Following his departure, Jennifer sent Lily off to school and pretended to leave for work herself. However, her destination wasn't the hospital. At a private investigation office in a corner of downtown, on the 15th floor of a modern office building, she sat stiffly in a chair. These are the results of our surveillance from last week. The middle-aged investigator handed her an envelope containing photos of Michael and Linda. Intimate scenes at the upscale restaurant Marine Room. The two of them sitting close together at a bar in the Gaslamp Quarter. And the decisive evidence, photos of them entering the U.S. Grand Hotel together. The date matched last week's emergency meeting. Around noon, Lily lay in the health office at La Jolla Country Day School. "Lily, you have a fever. And it seems you have a bad headache." The school nurse, Mrs. Johnson, spoke with concern. As she looked at the pale-faced girl, she picked up the phone. She dialed Michael's cell phone, listed as the emergency contact. In the investment bank's conference room, Michael's smartphone vibrated. The screen showed an incoming call from the school. However, his eyes were fixed on the proposal Linda was presenting. "I'll call back later," he thought, just as Linda touched his hand. "Let's do the final check on the Las Vegas project. We'll take tonight's flight." Michael nodded at those words. The incoming call had already vanished from his consciousness. At 2 p.m., Lily walked home alone. With written guardian permission, students could walk home alone if they lived within a 10-minute walking distance. That was the school's policy. But today's walk felt longer than usual. As soon as she got home, she lay down on the living room sofa. Her headache was getting worse, and chills wrapped around her body. She tried to drink water, but although her throat was parched, she couldn't swallow. "Mom. Dad." Her faint voice was absorbed into the empty house. The clock showed 3 p.m. With trembling hands, Lily dialed her grandmother's number. "Grandma, my head hurts. I'm scared being alone." Carol immediately called her son. In the lobby of the U.S. Grand Hotel, Michael saw the incoming call from his mother. Next to him stood Linda, ready for departure. "What is it, Mom?" "Lily isn't feeling well. You need to go home now. I'm about to leave for Las Vegas. I'll deal with Lily later." That cold voice left Carol speechless. The hotel's background music. And a woman's voice. Understanding everything, she grabbed her car keys. At that moment, the hotel's glass doors swung open wide. "Dear." Jennifer's voice echoed through the luxurious lobby. She clutched photos in her hand. The color drained from Michael's face. Linda took a step back. Your daughter is sick, and this is what you're doing. You don't deserve to be a father. Jennifer's shouts reverberated through the hotel lobby. All eyes in the vicinity focused on the three of them. Meanwhile, Carol's car desperately headed toward Carmel Valley. With each red light, her anxiety grew. Lily, just wait a little longer. Her hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. San Diego's gentle afternoon sunlight now felt cruelly bright. The San Diego sky was dim, with heavy clouds covering the city. In a luxury suite at the U.S. Grand Hotel, two figures collapsed after an intense argument. Michael and Jennifer were loaded onto stretchers as the ambulance arrived. The paramedics quickly but carefully secured their bodies. Michael's expensive suit was disheveled, and tear stains marked Jennifer's cheeks. In the emergency room at Scripps Memorial Hospital, Dr. Anderson hurried toward the treatment room. He assessed the situation at a glance. Consciousness disturbance due to hyperventilation. Dehydration from psychological shock. And above all, deep emotional wounds. Check vital signs. Then arrange for blood tests and CT scans. At the nurse's station, they were working on contacting Carol. Mom. The moment she received the call, Carol's intuition told her. Something irreversible had happened. Lily, Grandma needs to go to the hospital. I want to go too. Her granddaughter's voice trembled. I want to see Mom and Dad. When they arrived at the hospital, a tense atmosphere hung over the emergency room waiting area. Two police officers were talking in hushed tones at the end of the hallway, presumably investigating the hotel incident. Mrs. Brown. Dr. Anderson quietly called Carol. Led to the examination room, she sat down in a chair surrounded by white walls. Lily held her hand tightly. Let me explain their condition. You see. The doctor's voice was cautious. Physical dysfunction due to excessive stress. Dehydration. Insomnia. And most significantly, severe psychological shock. But that was just the tip of the iceberg. What concerns me most are your granddaughter's symptoms. The doctor looked at Lily. His eyes reflected deep concern, born from years of experience as a pediatrician. The psychosomatic symptoms are significant. Long-term stress from her parents' discord. It's having a major impact on her body. Weakened immune system, insomnia, loss of appetite. Carol nodded silently. The reason for her granddaughter's poor health. The cause of increased night crying. Everything connected. Mom. Jennifer's voice echoed in the hallway as she emerged from the treatment room. Her makeup was gone, her expression exhausted. Yet her eyes held strong determination. Where's Michael? Carol asked. In another room, being questioned by the police. Jennifer sighed deeply and began to explain. The incident at the hotel. Her husband's reaction when confronted with evidence of his affair. And Linda Parker's existence. I've made my decision. Her voice trembled but remained strong. I'm filing for divorce. And I'm seeking custody of Lily. At that moment, Michael appeared from beyond the treatment room. His expensive suit was wrinkled, his face ashen. 2 police officers stood behind him. One of the officers addressed Jennifer. "Would you like to press charges for the violent incident at the hotel?" Jennifer hesitated for a moment. But the strength of Lily's grip on her hand showed her the answer. "No, that won't be necessary. Just..." She looked at Michael. "I want to focus on our daughter now." Lily clung to her mother. Feeling the small body trembling, Carol quietly closed her eyes. The doctor spoke again. "Mrs. Brown, there's one more thing you should know." The fluorescent lights cast a cold glow in the examination room. Carol realized they were standing just at the beginning of a long journey. Outside, San Diego's cloudy sky was finally starting to clear. In the waiting room at Scripps Memorial Hospital, the soft light of dusk filtered through the windows, casting pale shadows on the white walls. Carol quietly sipped her coffee, processing the events that had unfolded. The one more fact Dr. Anderson had revealed was more serious than expected. Lily's blood test results. Compromised immune function due to extreme stress. And various physical symptoms accompanying it. The 8-year-old girl's body had been quietly but surely sending out SOS signals. "Mom." Jennifer emerged from the treatment room and sat down wearily in a chair. "Michael wants to talk." In another room, Michael sat with his head bowed deeply. He had removed his expensive suit and now wore a thin blue hospital gown. His appearance no longer reflected the dignified investment banker he once was, but rather just an exhausted middle-aged man. "Mom, As her son struggled for words, Carol watched him quietly. Her eyes held deep sadness rather than anger. "It all started 6 months ago." Michael slowly began to speak. "The day Linda Parker was assigned to the department. Her intellectual brilliance, her passion for work. She was like a mirror reflecting his younger self. At first, it was pure respect and empathy. But then came the late-night overtime, weekend meetings. Gradually, their relationship transformed. The pressure at work kept increasing year by year. Conversations with her became my only solace." His voice trembled as he confessed. "But that's just an excuse. I made the worst choice possible." In the hallway, Lily was talking with a social worker. With an expression too mature for her small frame, she expressed her feelings. "When Mom and Dad started fighting, I thought maybe it was my fault." Meanwhile, at the investment bank office, colleagues anxiously observed Michael's absence. Rumors had already spread. Linda Parker's sudden resignation letter. And the apology note she had left behind. "What should I do now?" As Michael's voice trailed off, Carol broke the long silence. "Son, you have 2 choices," she said in a quiet but firm voice. "Either lose everything, or start again from scratch." At Grace Community Church's Sunday service, Carol gazed up at the stained glass ceiling. Lily sat beside her. As a temporary arrangement, Lily had come to live with Carol. Jennifer continued her 3-day hospital shifts while beginning counseling sessions. Michael had moved into a studio apartment. A small room in La Jolla Village. He took a leave of absence from the investment bank and began treatment at a psychiatric clinic. On Saturday afternoons, he visited Carol's house to see his daughter. Though the conversations were awkward, he was gradually trying to rebuild his time with his daughter. "Grandma," Lily whispered one day while watering flowers in the garden. "Will we ever be happy again?" Carol gently stroked her granddaughter's hair. The petunias and marigolds swayed in the breeze. "Of course, sweetheart. It might be different from before, but surely." Lily gave a small nod at those words. Her smile was still tentative, but noticeably brighter than before. Jennifer had begun divorce mediation. However, it wasn't about revenge. It was a calm decision for her daughter's future. Michael had accepted this too. "Our family can never go back to what it was," Jennifer told Carol after returning from counseling. "But I believe we can become a new kind of family." On weekends, a small vase sat on Carol's dining table. It held wildflowers that Lily had picked on her way home from school. Next to it lay a poem she had written. "Dear family." Beginning with these words, the poem was childish but heartfelt. Carol saw new hope in that single piece of paper. In the gentle San Diego twilight, new flowers were beginning to bloom in Carol's garden. Life, sometimes, is like garden flowers. They may wither, but they can bloom again in their own time. And she realized this wasn't an ending. It was a new beginning.